You're listening to the Apple Insider Podcast.
Welcome to episode 33 of our show where we discuss the latest news about Apple, iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and more. We're recording on Thursday, September 10th, 2015, and today we have myself, Mikey Campbell, and managing editor of Apple Insider, Neil Hughes.
Hey, Mikey, how's it going?
Pretty good. So, this was the Apple week. Could be the Apple month, the Apple year. What did you think about yesterday's event?
Not a lot of surprises, right? We pretty much knew everything that was going to happen. I was kind of surprised that they crammed all into one event, but the rumors leading up to it were that they were going to do that, and the rumor was right. That was one of those things that I was wondering, maybe they'll hold it, because typically they hold an event in October. But I mean, it was a jam-packed event. 3 main product updates: iPhone 6s, obviously, Apple TV, iPad Pro were kind of the focuses of the event. But overall, I think it came across pretty good, and it's a compelling lineup for the fall, I'd say.
Yeah, I was hearing some things about people being disappointed that there weren't any one more things or any surprises at all. What do you think that there's a problem in that?
I mean, there's something to be said for being surprised, but let's be honest. The people that are spoiled on this kind of stuff are the kind of people who are reading Apple Insider, so it's kind of their own fault. It's not like
Right.
It's not like they just stumbled across a spoiler or something like that. Leading up to this event, friends and family are reaching out to me, going, "What's going to be the new iPhone? When's it coming out?" And we had a really good idea of what it was going to be, and got pretty much everything correct on all of it, as far as all the rumors went leading up to it. So I mean,
what about the new iPhone? What do you think about it? I mean, 3D Touch.
Yeah. So for people listening, it's got a Force Touch, which has now been kind of branded 3D Touch, which has different levels of touch input. So you can push it kind of lightly, and it brings up menus, and then you can push deeper. And that's basically the big defining feature of this iPhone 6s. It looks pretty much the same as last year's model. They have new material on the outside, the same as the Apple Watch, which will make it a little bit stiffer and harder and stuff like that. Faster A9 CPU, which they say is almost twice as fast as last year's processor, which is a pretty amazing achievement. New rose gold color, which may be popular with the ladies. And honestly, I think the only thing that I didn't see coming about the iPhone was it's launching a week later than Apple usually launches phones. It's not coming until the 25th, and usually the phones go on sale about a week and a half after they're announced. So September 25th is when it'll hit the store shelves.
Yeah, I wonder if that's more of a marketing thing, or do you think they're having trouble again? There were rumors leading up to the announcement that they're having issues integrating the 3D Touch mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big internal overhaul to the point that they had to squeeze a little bit more battery life out of the processor and stuff, because they have to actually shrink the battery, because you now have an entirely new the haptic engine has come over from the MacBook and the Apple Watch and is now in the new iPhone. So while you just had a pretty basic vibration motor in previous generation iPhones, now you have a more advanced one that's going to give you more subtle feedback as you interact with the device and give it this haptic sensation. So there's a lot of changes internally to this device that you don't see on the outside that could definitely play a part in the manufacturing of it and lead to complications. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the reason why they have another week, just so they can ramp up production. Because, I mean, let's not forget, they do these giant global launches for their iPhones, and they sell 12 million of them in 3 days. That's not an easy thing to do, to scale up to that level. So an extra week, people will live. They can live without their iPhone for a week.
I'm really interested to kind of play with the 3D Touch system. I obviously there's going to be a little bit of flexure going on in the in the screen, right?
Yeah.
Since they have those capacitive cells built in with the backlight.
Right.
So I wonder what it feels like. I mean, I know Phil Schiller said that they're using the new double ion exchange
Yes.
glass. So I mean, it's even stronger than before.
They claim it's the strongest glass of any phone on the market. Who knows how that'll survive in real world use. You can scratch anything, it seems, but that's what they say. Ion X glass is what they use in the entry level Apple Watch, on the sport model.
I don't have a sport version, but I hear it does stand up fairly well.
I don't have any scratches on mine. I know Shane got a little scratch on his, and he said that he can see it from an angle sometimes, and it really upsets him. But I luckily don't have any scratches on mine yet. Fingers crossed. I'll probably scratch it later today because I said that.
I have a scratch on my on the Sapphire of the stainless one.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same thing Shane's seeing.
Yeah.
It's like a scuff. I mean, it's not like it looks superficial, but I can't rub it off.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that the immaculate Sapphire isn't perfect and can actually scratch?
Yeah, I got it about a week after I received my watch. I was pretty disheartened when I saw it. You can see it if you rub your finger on it, and there's like a little bit of oil or whatever. Mm-hmm. It leaves like a little ghost impression.
But you don't notice this in daily use,
no,
right?
No.
I mean, come on.
No way. I have to look for it to see it.
Yeah, I mean, for our listeners who don't know, for years there have been rumors that Apple was going to make, you name it, they were going to make it out of sapphire. iPhone screens, iPad screens, MacBook screens.
An entire Apple TV.
Yeah. And it's really silly because, first of all, Sapphire doesn't deal well with drop tests. And you won't drop your watch, but you will drop your phone. And so, yes, it might be scratch resistant, but there's other things to consider when you're looking at these materials, including the fact that Sapphire is really expensive and really hard to produce. So there's never really been a realistic expectation that Apple was going to produce, 60 million iPhones in a quarter with Sapphire. Although I am sure that there are people who, after yesterday's event, were upset that there was no Sapphire on the iPhone 6S. So,
yeah, well, we haven't heard those complaints yet because they're too busy complaining about the lack of other stuff.
Yeah, right. But I mean, so 3D Touch. I'm sorry. Even Air Force One yesterday in his presentation slipped up and said he said Force at some point in the presentation. So 3D Touch, we have to get used to that. I mean, that's the big feature here, right? I mean, the A9 processor is nice, the new color is nice, but I mean, they say they improved Touch ID and it's faster, but I mean, was it slow to begin with? I don't.
Not really. My girlfriend doesn't use it because I guess it takes too long.
Really?
But it's not like she's on her phone. I'm on my phone probably about 50 times more than she is comparatively.
Now that you mention that, I notice a lot of people, like when I'm out with friends or whatever, they have Touch ID and they still do the 4-digit passcode. Yeah. And they don't use Touch ID. And I don't know, maybe they're paranoid about their fingerprint or they don't understand it. I wonder what that is. Because I have the complex passcode on mine. It's like a 10-digit password.
Right.
Letters and numbers, capital, lowercase. Because for me, it's like, well, I only have to enter this when I'm restarting my phone anyhow. Mm-hmm. So I just do the complex passcode.
Yeah, so I don't know what their deal is. I mean, I asked her, and she said it just takes too long because maybe sometimes it doesn't catch or doesn't read it. It doesn't work
if your fingers are moist. So, like, if it's raining out or you're sweating at the gym or something like that, then it's a problem. But other than that, it works great for me. I mean, sometimes it works so fast that I'll want to check something on my lock screen, and the phone unlocks too quickly.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You got to, like, pull your thumb off immediately. So, I mean, Touch ID is faster, but I don't know how much I really care about that. The cameras are a big improvement. So we've got a 12 megapixel on the rear, and it now shoots 4K video, even though there's only one Apple device that can display 4K video at its native resolution, which is the 27-inch iMac. Not even the Apple TV can do 4K video. So that's interesting. I feel like the 4K video is just the hardware is capable of this, so let's do it kind of feature, right?
I think so. I mean, everyone else is doing it, so
right.
So why not? It is a hot buzzword.
Yeah, and you can while you shoot 4K video, you can snap 1080p photos during the video shoot as well. And the more pixels you have to work with, the better you can do image stabilization and stuff like that. So there are advantages to 4K. Not a feature that I'm crazy about. And then we have these new photos that it takes as well. What are they called? The moving photos. People are calling them the Harry Potter photos.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, so live photos. I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting concept, and it is great for those people who are invested in Apple's ecosystem because you can use those as watch face screens, right?
Yeah, that's pretty neat, actually. I thought that was cool. I don't know how much I care about this feature. The first thing I thought when I saw it was, it automatically takes a video when I take a photo. It's just going to fill up my phone. I'm just going to run out of space faster.
Yeah. Apparently, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean,
they said something about it being optimized and all that.
Right.
But I mean, come on, it's still a video on my phone for every photo I take.
But is it a video? I thought it was isn't it a series of still images?
It might, yeah. It's got a weird effect to it because it's not quite a video. I mean, it looks
kind of like a GIF, right? Or a GIF.
GIF is how I pronounce it.
I pronounce it GIF as well.
Yeah. Well, the one thing it made me think actually was, okay, so I can play these photos with 3D touch in the Photos app, but I still can't play GIFs in the Photos app.
Yeah, right.
Like, come on,
Well, I mean, Apple,
as someone who sends and saves a fair amount of GIFs and even makes GIFs on my phone, let's get GIF support built into.
Wow.
I actually use an app called Giflay, is what it's called. Although it's not currently working in iOS 9, so let's get that fixed, whoever develops Giflay. But it's pretty cool. It scours your Photos app, and then it just gives you a presentation of all the GIFs that you have on your phone. And then you can just find them and send them quickly that way. And then the one I use to make GIFs is Giffer Pro. So if you guys are into GIFs out there, hot tip for you. There you go.
I feel like you need to reevaluate your life choices.
I did want to mention, though, while we're talking about the iPhones as well, I wrote an article about this today, and you can find it in the show notes at the website if you are inclined to read it. But Apple, one of the bigger announcements yesterday, kind of flew under the radar, is there's a new iPhone upgrade program. And what it is a interest-free loan that allows you to pay for your iPhone and Apple Care Plus warranty over a 2-year period. And then after 12 payments, the first year, you're eligible to trade in your phone and get next year's phone. So basically what Apple's doing here is they're bypassing the carriers. So the carriers have similar plans to this, where they're interest-free and you can get the phone at full cost but spread out over some period of time. The difference here, the main key, is that Apple is giving you the unlocked phone. And if you get it from AT&T, it's going to be locked to AT&T. So if you compare the plans for what they charge per month for the models and the fact that it includes the Apple Care, if you're getting Apple Care with your phone, Apple's new upgrade program is probably your best bet for getting a new phone because, again, it's interest-free, so all you're doing is just spreading the cost of the phone over 2 years, and that money is worth more in your pocket than it is in Apple's pocket. So, that was kind of an interesting thing that they did, and this kind of struck me, Mikey, as a snub to the carriers. Would you agree?
I would. I mean, there's never really been any love lost between Apple and the carriers, and I've kind of been waiting for Apple to wrest back power from them, and I guess this is it's a decent start.
It's a small battle to pick, but a good one, because the carriers they're not making money off of these plans. These plans are interest free from Verizon as well. The difference is that in exchange for them giving you a beneficial loan, what they do is lock the phone so you can't leave and go to from AT&T to T-Mobile or something. The one difference is T-Mobile has a new plan. First of all, they're subsidizing the phone partially, so they are selling it for about $125 cheaper than the actual price of the handset through their plan they announced this week. So you can get an iPhone 6S from them with an 18-month plan, and over the course of the plan, you'd pay $524 for the 16-gig model instead of $649. So the reason they're doing that is because they want you to try out their network and stick with it, and they're trying to grow their customer base. But they also have a thing where it's called a lifetime coverage guarantee. So if you sign up for T-Mobile and you don't like their signal because it doesn't work in your area, you can take the phone into the store and they will unlock the phone for you, and you can go to the carrier of your choice. The only catch there is you still owe them the money for the phone, so you'd have to pay them over whatever amount of time it was. But interesting approach by the uncarrier, as they are known, and something that people that are looking to get this phone might consider if they're okay with trying out T-Mobile. I know some people that have had T-Mobile and not had great experiences with their signal. I used to be a T-Mobile customer in the past and ended up leaving because of signal issues and stuff. So maybe they've sorted that kind of stuff out. I am on AT&T, and I can't say I'm overly pleased with it, but I am the beneficiary of a corporate discount, which helps me out.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, so I actually switched to a cap data plan, and they kept adding these incentives, AT&T, and so now I have 3 people on my plan, and I think I have an 18 gig cap. And the total plan for 3 people with smartphones is like $125 a month. So it's actually pretty competitive. But the reason it's so low is because I don't have any phone subsidies. I pay outright for my phones. So I bought a 128 gig iPhone 6 last year and paid $850 plus tax for it.
Right.
But in exchange for that, because I didn't take a 2-year contract subsidy, they lowered my monthly rate. So 6 1/2 dozen the other on that.
I don't know. I'm still on the old unlimited.
A lot of people don't want to let that go. Yeah. How much data do you use?
I mean, the most data I've probably ever used is like 30 gigabytes.
Whoa! What did you do for 30 gigabytes? Holy crap!
Look, there was a phase in my life where I was watching a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
And
without Wi-Fi nearby, I mean.
No. Why? No. I was at Starbucks a lot.
They have free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but it's free, not so great Wi-Fi. So, well, I mean, why use that when I can use LTE?
Well, and Verizon just announced this week that their next generation LTE is going to start rolling out next year, and it's got latency of like less than 10 milliseconds or something. So. Yeah,
that is excellent.
We're getting to a point where you may not need to pay for home internet in 4 or 5 years, and it'll all be through whoever your wireless provider is.
Oh God, I hope not. I don't know how many terabytes of data I eat through at home.
What do you do that you download that much stuff?
Look, you don't need to know. All right, suffice to say, there's a lot of data coming in and out of this house.
All right. Well, we should also note that the iPhone 6S also has a upgraded LTE radio, LTE Advanced. So for those people upgrading, you make it faster connection if where you live is supporting it. And there's also, I think, faster Wi-Fi radios and stuff like that. So a lot of internal tweaks to this phone. What say you? Pretty good S upgrade or no?
I think it's probably one of their best, actually.
Yeah. So you're excited about 3D Touch?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels if they just slapped a different chassis on there, it would feel like a new phone,
right?
Basically, I mean, so there's enough going on internally, especially with the Taptic engine. I mean, that's like adding in an entirely new component in there. So it feels like a very substantial update, and with the new upgrade program, I feel like they're gonna catch a lot of people, maybe breaking out of their 2-year contract here.
Does 3D Touch strike you as a power user feature?
No. I mean, for some things, yes. Not going into an app. I don't think the common user would be interested in that.
Right.
opening an app is fine for them. But for the other things like the so-called peek and pop, the
popping and locking.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the peek mode is probably going to be enticing as far as like going through emails and stuff.
Right.
Peeking into a map or
is that really going to save time? Like when you're looking at your email, I saw that one and I just didn't understand it.
I think well, I don't know. It depends on what your flow is, but I'm always finding myself switching between apps when I'm composing emails and stuff. Checking Safari or getting address information and then coming back into mail. I think this is going to save a lot of time for the common consumer and it's, as well as be a decent update for power users. And potentially it's going to get a lot deeper in the next generation.
Yeah.
iOS 10. See where it goes from there.
I am still a little skeptical, as I've said in weeks past, just the nature of force touch on the watch, and it's kind of, try this out and see if it works. I see that being an issue still. I didn't see any UI elements to make it clear that you could do force touch actions on the phone. So I predict, not having used it, but from what I've seen, I predict that this is going to be more of a power user feature. We were talking earlier about people who don't even use Touch ID on their phone, right? I think that this is going to be something that's going to be advantageous for hardcore iPhone users who, know all the little tweaks and little hidden elements of the UI. This is going to be another layer for them that's going to save them time. But for your average iPhone user, I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make, but time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, they are really hyping it as like the feature of the 6S. I mean, they
what else would you hype?
Yeah,
there's nothing. There's nothing like you're not going to sell more phones because of a color or an upgraded camera,
right? But it's that fact that they're hyping it that is going to put it in the hive mind. It's going to get out there, and people will be cognizant of it, and I'm sure it'll be a lot better or a lot more efficient to push that feature 3D touch in store rather than pushing force touch on Apple Watch.
True.
Right? Because there's so much more you can do with it that it becomes a enticing selling point.
Well, one of the selling points for the watch was digital touch, right? That's been a big part of their campaign. That's been what Apple's hyped.
Yeah.
And you can draw little pictures and send them to other people that have Apple Watches. And there's kind of a chicken and egg problem there because how many people do you know that own an Apple Watch? And there's also just a screen size problem because how much can you draw on a 1.5 inch screen? There's not really a lot that you can do.
I was kind of hoping they would bring that at least to the 6S. A bit of compatibility with the Apple Watch. That'd be neat because right now, as it stands, it kind of stands alone as its own messaging or a secondary messaging app on your Apple Watch, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, it's one of those, and the fact that it has its own button dedicated to it on the watch too.
Yeah,
it's a strange decision there, and not one that I completely understand. I could see it being popular with kids. But just it's impossible to draw anything on a screen that small. So I am not sorry that they did not bring it to the 6S. One thing to note, though, that I realized in the presentation yesterday, they were talking about the M9 motion coprocessor that's part of the A9 chip in the iPhone 6S. Mm-hmm. And the new M9 motion coprocessor is always on, and it can track it estimates your speed of walking or running, which is something that is borrowed from the Apple Watch, the S1 chip in the Apple Watch. So now if you go for a run with your iPhone and you don't want to use GPS or just for the health app when you're running around, it can estimate when you're exercising and more accurately track calories burned and that sort of stuff. So that's actually a Apple Watch element that has kind of quietly come to the iPhone 6S. And the motion coprocessor, the M9, also, for some reason, is running the Hey Siri capabilities. So now you don't have to have your iPhone or iPad Pro plugged in for your iPhone to be able to respond to "Hey Siri." It'll always be creepily listening to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, such is life. You give and take. Who cares, really?
Right.
I mean, they're all about the privacy, and if it adds value to your life, then why not? All right. Okay, so I mean that is iPhone 6s. It's faster, stronger, lighter, deeper, stiffer. Right? I mean, what else can you say?
Well, it's not forceful, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, do you need a website, Neil?
I do.
Good. Well, why not do it yourself with Wix.com? When you're running your own business, you're bound to be busy. Too busy. And because you're too busy, it has to be easy. And that's where Wix.com comes in. With Wix.com, it's easy for you to create your stunning website. No matter what business you're in, we'll have something for you. Used by 60 million people throughout the world, Wix.com empowers business owners to create their own professional websites. You can even do it yourself with Drag and Drop Builder. And it comes with hundreds of designer-made customizable templates and no coding needed. It's easy, it's free. You can go to Wix.com and sign up for an entirely free account today. No credit card required. Get your website live today. The result is stunning. Thanks to Wix.com for sponsoring our podcast today. With Wix.com, you don't need to be a programmer or designer to create something beautiful. Go to Wix.com and easily create your own stunning website for free today. All right, and up next, still on the iPhone 6s event, we're moving on to Apple TV. Something that is near and dear to my heart, my data-eating heart. So Apple TV, $150 for the base model, 32 gigabytes of storage. Comes with the Siri remote, new App Store, bunch of OS improvements, including support for gaming controllers. What do you think about it, Neil?
Again, kind of what we expected, right? The UI looks pretty fun, very colorful. A big change from the kind of drab black previous Apple TV interface. This one, when you select something, it kind of like dances around and stuff. And it seems like they're trying to market this as a very friendly device, which plays in with the controller supporting casual games and stuff like that. And as we predicted, this is kind of a device that is aiming for the whole of the market. They're not going after just Roku. They're going after Nintendo and even to some extent, Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox One. How successful they're going to be doing that, we will see. But, this is really a catch-all device, input one, as they say, something that wants to be everything that you do in the living room. It'll be interesting to see what developers do with it. They really showed off a wide range of apps for it at the presentation. There was one for Airbnb or something. They had a few travel ones, right, where you could see what the room looked like before you booked it on your TV.
Yeah.
I don't know, and they did some shopping on there too.
Well, Zillow is on there. You can buy a house.
Yeah. I don't know how popular that's going to be, but options are good, right? So if people want it, it's out there, I guess, and developers want to make it. I think that it's really going to be about streaming video content and casual games. That's what this thing's about, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I think they're just, I don't know. I mean, even the Zillow thing is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to get, the notion out there that your Apple TV is no longer just an Apple TV. It is basically entertainment-focused, hypercharged smartphone that connects to your HD TV, right?
What was the game they showed off yesterday? It was
Crossy Road?
Crossy Road. So I've never played Crossy Road before. This is my first experience seeing it. It looked like a Frogger, a modern version of Frogger or something.
Yeah, it's a Frogger knockoff.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the more entertaining demos I've seen.
Yeah.
They actually look like they're having fun up there.
They also have a Guitar Hero coming out, but they made no mention of actual things like any accessories, like guitar accessories. So, and from the screenshots, it looks like you just play it with the remote and just press buttons on the remote, which I can't imagine that that's particularly exciting, but there you go. And it feels to me like, as somebody who's into indie games and kind of smaller games and interesting experimental games, many of which are on the iPhone, it just feels like Apple is just kind of dipping their toes in the water, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a full-on embrace of let's get games on here. It's kind of isn't this cool?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it feels a little half-baked to me.
Yeah.
Especially coming so late in the after the last one was released, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel I'm not really certain what their strategy for the living room is yet, and I'm not sure that they actually have wrapped their heads around it completely either. I know Tim Cook's saying that apps are the future of TV, and that's a great thing to say when you own the biggest app ecosystem on earth, right? But really, what does that mean for the consumer? Apps are the future of TV. TV is always going to be about, a couple things: watching shows, playing games, and for a small percentage of people, smart TV, internet access, and stuff like that. But I'm not sure what they can disrupt really in this category.
The demo of MLB at App was pretty cool. Sports picture-in-picture. They said NHL's coming next year. I'm down with that. Availability of apps is good. I currently mostly use an Xbox One just because it controls my cable box, and I'm stuck with cable. But Xbox One does not yet have an HBO Now app, so I have to switch to my Apple TV to watch HBO Now. Why it's not on the Xbox, I don't know. But you got to think that going forward, this Apple TV is going to be the platform of choice for anybody who's putting content out there, right? I mean, Apple by default is going to be... So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that kind of stuff like you do with current consoles now, where it's like, oh, is it supported on this console? Like, I can get Amazon Instant Video on a lot of platforms, but it's not an Apple TV currently,
Oh, shocking.
Yeah, whoever's decision that is, I don't know, but presumably, now that there's an open app store, there's going to be an Amazon Instant Video streaming capability for Apple TV, which will be nice. So bringing down those walls, I think, is a good thing. It supports not only the Wii remote-style controller that comes with it, the Siri remote, but also will support made-for iPhone Bluetooth gaming controllers, which can be larger and more complex, like an Xbox controller. But if you go through the developer documentation, it says in there that developers are discouraged from making games that solely rely on a controller, a more larger form factor controller. So basically they're saying, please don't make complex games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, like we were talking about in the last show, I don't know if that's a mistake or not, because, if you look at Amazon's Fire TV, right? I mean, they pushed gaming like super hard, and they made their own controller for it and created their own game studio.
Yeah.
But the game that they were making, or that they launched it with, was crap. And it was all right for a smartphone game, but
right.
On a TV, when you compare that to something, that's a console that's already sitting here probably for someone who's going to buy the Fire TV, it doesn't compare really. It's good for it's a quick fix stuff is interesting, and Apple kind of showed that in their reveal ad, right?
Yes.
I think the guy was like, what were they watching? They were watching Fast and Furious, and then they said they wanted to play Asphalt. Or
Yeah.
Ask Siri if they're.
Yeah.
Which is, I can kind of see stuff like that happening. Maybe not that specific thing. Hey, it's the best part of Fast and Furious. Let's switch away. I live my life quarter mile at a time. Yeah.
I think a lot of people mention Nintendo and the Wii talking about this, and for good reason. You look at the success that Nintendo had with the Wii, that was a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the lack of success that non-Nintendo developers had with the Wii. And that is just the nature of games. Most people do not want to pay $60 for a Call of Duty or a Mario game or whatever. They will pay $1 or nothing for an Angry Birds game happily, because at that price they can buy 60 fun time wasters rather than one really great fun time waster.
Yeah.
So that's the market that they're going for. It's not going to be these $60 blockbusters. They could be on there. They could be released for this platform, but I think that really where this will catch on is with people that just want quick, free $1 games, sit down and play them, and I think it could be a success doing that. But you just can't look at it as it's going to knock out, the Xbox or something like that. I mean, they didn't even put an A9 processor in this; still run the A8. It's
a fatal flaw in many people's arguments that it's even being compared to consoles, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a totally new. It's a totally new beast. It's something that we haven't really seen before. It's bringing mobile gaming to your TV, which is kind of coming full circle, right? I mean,
right.
TV games came to mobile, and now they're going back on the TV, except smaller and more bite-sized because no one has attention spans long enough to play a campaign.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I agree that the whole Wii strategy and that model could be effective when applied to Apple TV or something like it.
And it would be good for Apple because they don't care if you aren't paying $60 for a game, as evidenced by the price of apps for iPhone and iPad. Certainly Apple would like the apps to cost more, but I don't think that it really matters to Apple. Whereas for Nintendo's in the business of making $60 games, $50 games, and they want developers to make games to their platform and sell them for $50, $60. If people buy a Nintendo Wii and are just content with Wii Sports until they get rid of the console or it collects dust, that's bad for everybody involved. But for Apple, I don't think they care. So they can get into this market and not have the stakes be as high as it is for a company like Nintendo or Microsoft or something like that, where they're targeting a very different market.
Right. Well, Nintendo is getting into mobile games, right? I mean, they said they're
they're gonna bring some of their franchises,
their old school, their stale franchises. But I mean, maybe we could see that come to Apple TV.
I mean, maybe. And for Nintendo, they are the only company that actually makes money on the hardware that they sell in that space. Presumably, Apple's going to make money on the hardware they sell here, too, because that's what Apple does. But you look at Microsoft and you look at Sony, and they sell their consoles souped up at a loss because their idea is they collect a portion of all the game sales, and then they make it up on that end. But, it took, 6 or 7 years for Microsoft's Xbox division to be profitable?
Yeah.
That's not a business that Apple gets into. They're not going to compete with that because they don't want to sell you a souped up box. If they want to do that, they would have put the A9 chip in this thing, and it still's running last year's A8 chip. So they're dipping their toes in the water with gaming, and that's perfectly fine. There were a lot of people complaining because there's a limit on the apps. They can't be more than 200 megabytes, and then when you launch the app, it can load data from the internet, and it'll store it temporarily until it runs out of space. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that prevents like huge games, like if you want to get Grand Theft Auto San Andreas from your phone and play it on your Apple TV, it's like a 1.5 gig install. So they'd have like a 200 meg install, and then you'd load the game, and then it would have to download the rest of it before you could play it. So that's going to hurt games, but that's something they'll fix over time. This thing's got 32 and 64 gigs of storage in the $149, $199 models.
Right. Well, looking at the hardware, they have the Siri remote, obviously, but what about what about the lack of ports on the back, which is they didn't really do, they kind of glossed over that in the
this pissed me
keynote.
off. This really upset me because I still use the optical port with headphones. So I've been traveling a lot, and I don't have a receiver that I use. So if I want to use headphones with something, you either need to get a box that will break the digital copyright protection and rip the audio and put it over optical, which there could be an update to HDMI that would prevent that in the future, and you'd be screwed. Or you need a device that complies with HDCP and allows you to output audio over optical. And the second and third generation Apple TV were those kind of devices, and they did separate audio out over optical. This Apple TV, even though the hardware is taller and bigger and has the space for it on the back, they did not include an optical port in this one.
Yeah, that is an odd decision. I mean, I see what they're doing. They're trying to streamline the ports and connecting and stuff, but it does limit your options pretty severely.
A lot of people have TVs with optical outs on them, so what you would do is plug the HDMI from your TV into the Apple TV, and then the TV itself would rip the audio. The problem with that is a lot of times the audio that comes out of the TV is not surround sound. It's actually just stereo and puts it out over optical.
Yeah.
So if you had, for example, a receiver that is older and doesn't have HDMI inputs on it, then you may need to upgrade your receiver. Or if you have gaming headphones that can simulate 5.1 sound, then you would not be able to get that. So this is something that applies to me personally, and I'm sure that there are a fair amount of people out there. Because, I mean, how often do you upgrade your speakers and your receiver, right? I mean, some people running receivers that are 10 years old.
Those are the best.
What this really speaks to, though, is whoever's in charge of the HDMI compliance folks need to make it so that headphones can have an HDMI pass-through.
That would be nice.
I don't know if that product exists.
I don't know. Yeah.
If someone is listening and knows of headphones that have an HDMI pass-through, let me know. I will buy them. I've searched and I can't find them.
I wonder if Sony. I mean, Sony's all up in that.
Yeah,
business,
I have a really nice Sony wireless headset, and it has like a docking station and everything like that, but it's only optical. That's the way they all are. If you get those like gaming headphones, like the Turtle Beach, those are optical as well.
Right. Well, I mean, talking about the remote, it's a new thing for Apple TV, and Apple's on a roll with introducing new accessories for their new devices, and it's a pretty good segue into the iPad Pro and the Smart Keyboard and Apple Pencil. The huge ass 12.9-inch elephant in the room was introduced yesterday. Hold on, there's getting choppy.
Yeah, I'm getting it too.
All right,
Sounds better now.
One away. Okay. So the 12.9-inch iPad Pro announced yesterday, targeting professionals, artists, enterprise customers, not necessarily the average Joe. What do you think about that, Neil?
I'm irrationally excited for this device. I really like what they've done here. I love the idea of a bigger iPad. I love the idea of a more formal laptop, desktop replacement. I love the smart connector. I love the fact that Apple is playing nice with third-party accessory makers. They worked, imagine this, they worked with Logitech on this before the iPad Pro is announced to allow them to design a keyboard that's going to be there on launch day. This is Apple we're talking about, the most secretive company that doesn't work with anybody. Worked with Logitech. They made a smart keyboard, and this was actually a surprise. We knew there was going to be a port on the side of it, but we didn't know what it was. There were rumors there was going to be a USB-C port and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The smart connector is really cool, and Apple's going to sell a $169 keyboard cover.
Yep.
So it attaches magnetically, but because of the design of the port allows power to go both ways, the keyboard is much like a Microsoft Surface. The keyboard is not powered. It's powered by the tablet itself. So it works like this current smart cover, but it has an extra flap on there, and you can prop it up and use the keyboard. Not excited about that because it's not good for lap use. You would have to use it on like a table. It's the same problem that the Microsoft Surface has. Having said that, having a nice ultra portable keyboard that's flat like that, pretty cool. I'm glad that they're doing it, and it's a good direction for the iPad. I am excited because Apple made it very clear that data and power go both ways through the smart connector. So what you're basically looking at is a MagSafe port on an iPad that can be used to charge the iPad in the future, potentially. Nothing was announced, no products that'll do that yet. But I would love to see some sort of a docking station that you can plug into the wall that has a keyboard, and you put your iPad down at to charge and do some computing, and then you just pull it right off there when you want to go and do something else with a tablet. That has a lot of potential to be the computer that you need it to be at a given moment in time. And to me, that's really exciting and shows where Apple is planning on taking the iPad lineup into the future. The smart connector is what excites me. I don't draw. My handwriting's terrible, so I don't really have any interest in the Apple Pencil. But that's another element. A lot of people are saying, oh, Steve Jobs said if you see a stylus, they failed. Well, what Steve Jobs meant was if the stylus is your primary way of interacting with this device, of course they failed because it's a nightmare. This is an optional accessory for people that want to use it. It doesn't apply to me. It's not something I would want to use, but there are plenty of people out there that this is going to be a huge accessory for.
Right. It's not replacing multi-touch. It's augmenting it, and only in very specific scenarios. Yeah, so I mean, it's great to have a soundbite that says, "Oh my God, Apple, what are you doing?" Steve Jobs. This would never have happened if he was still alive. But I mean, really, technology has come to the point where Apple can release something like this, or develop something like this that actually makes sense and is much more usable than past attempts at it. And it's kind of like Wacom technology in a way. So I mean, when I first heard the rumors about Apple launching a stylus, and I think the initial it evolved into this kind of speculation that they would just have a dumb stylus, right? Like a stick, basically. Yeah. Which didn't really make sense to me because, I mean, what upside is that for Apple? And that ended up to be completely wrong. They had to actually, build in hardware support on the iPad side to make the Apple Pencil work, which is really the only true solution for getting the kind of the level of precision and interactivity that you're getting with a pencil, right? I mean, it'll select on a pixel level, and then you can tilt it. Yeah. You can do pressure sensitive operations with it, a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm really interested in seeing how that works. I'm not an artist by any means, but it is very appealing to have something like that on offer from Apple.
I think it's really cool that the Apple Pencil, on the other end, it charges through a male lightning connector. So what you do is you pop the back of it off, plug it into the lightning port on your iPad, and your iPad charges the pencil. But what's really cool is Apple says that plug it in just for 15 seconds into the iPad, and you get 30 minutes of uptime on the Apple Pencil. I mean, that's incredible.
Insanity. How long until we see pictures of people holding their iPad Pro up like billboard signs with the Apple Pencil stuck in the bottom?
And interesting to note too, since we're talking about Lightning, the Siri remote for the Apple TV also charges it as a female Lightning port on the remote, so you charge it through your iPhone cable or whatever. There was some speculation that maybe Apple would do away with Lightning and embrace USB-C across all of its devices, including the iPhone. I think that the Apple Pencil and the Apple TV would suggest that Lightning is here to stay for a little while.
I think so. I mean, they invested a substantial amount of money into creating it as a replacement for the 31-pin, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see them ditching it anytime soon. And I mean, it's a good solution. Just like USB-C is good. It's
surprised that the Apple TV remote doesn't charge through USB-C though. I would have thought USB-C.
It could be. I don't know. I wouldn't have been surprised either way. I mean,
yeah.
I have so many Lightning connectors lying around my house.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's Lightning. I don't have anything USB-C yet. That will, I'm sure, be changing soon. But
I mean, if it was USB-C, then I guess you'd have to get a USB-C cable that could connect to a wall wart, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, Apple has that, built into their install base. So I guess it's a decent decision. The remote lasts for a very long time.
Yeah.
What was it, 30 days? Or 3 months?
3 months, yeah.
So, that's pretty insane. So, yeah.
So what do you think of the pricing on this iPad Pro? It starts at $800, and that gets you 32 gigs of storage. For 150 more, you can get it up to 128 gigs of storage. And then they got a top-of-the-line model, which is over $1,050. And that has LTE, Wi-Fi, 128 gigs. I feel like they should have had a 256 gig model for starters. I feel like 128 is kind of cutting it a little low. And then when you figure out, well, okay, you're not going to get the 64 or the 32 gig, you're going to get the 128 gig. Then you got to pay $99 for the stylus. Then you got to pay $169 or whatever it is for the keyboard. You're looking at the cost of a MacBook.
Mm-hmm. But who are they targeting here with this thing? For the top end model with cellular, obviously they're going for the enterprise market on that.
Right.
People who take it out in the field. I don't know, real estate agents or surveyors or whoever it is. And with the cheaper Wi-Fi models, maybe creatives or creative professionals. Mm-hmm. And it's comparable with other offerings from, again, Wacom has their Cintiq tablet system, but it's not as powerful as the iPad. It can't run different apps and all that stuff. But it does have the pressure-sensitive stylus and all that good stuff that artists need. So it's a good middle-of-the-road device, but I don't know if people are really, or it's going to really drive sales. It is still expensive, and it's kind of a niche product at this point. Mm-hmm. Plus, who wants to carry around a 13-inch iPad? It's kind of defeats the purpose of having a tablet, really.
So let's
when you can't.
Let's run down the list here. Are you going to buy an iPhone 6s?
Yes.
Yes, I am as well. Are you going to buy an Apple TV?
Probably.
What capacities of both?
The highest.
Okay. I will do the same. iPad Pro. Are you going to buy one?
I don't know. I want one, but I don't need one.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
But let's say I did. I bought, and I couldn't buy the 32 because, with that huge screen, there's going to be content that is going to be extremely data intensive, and I'm not going to rely on streaming over Wi-Fi for that. So I'd probably have to go with at least a 64.
Well, there is no 64, right?
I see at least the 128.
Yeah. So will you get the pencil and or the keyboard?
I would be interested in the pencil. Not really interested in the keyboard because it uses dome switches and it's not tactile.
Yeah.
But if you do buy the Pro, it is acting as a pseudo laptop replacement.
And there's a lot of great enhancements in iOS 9 specific to hardware keyboards that this takes advantage of.
Yeah, so I guess count me in.
I have a Bridge keyboard that I reviewed about a year ago, I guess, BRYDG.
YDG. Yeah.
It's a iPad Air MacBook style keyboard attachment. I love it because it allows me, if I want to use my iPad like a laptop. And what I mean by that is put it on my lap. I can't do that. I tried to work. Microsoft sent me a Surface a couple of years ago, and I tried to work with it for a day, and it was just a nightmare. And the kickstand it does not work on your lap. When you have a laptop, the base of it needs to be heavy, like in a laptop with a light screen. With an iPad, obviously, all the weight, and with a Surface, all the weight is in the screen itself. So you need something sturdy to make it work. The Bridge works great for this. I am not sure how well it's going to work with Apple's keyboard because it gets that light cover. I'm guessing it's not going to have a great lap ability, for lack of a better term, which, if you're working on a desk, I'm sure it's fine, but I want something that gives me that lap ability, and I will take the added weight and size that it requires for that, because I don't want to do that with my iPad all the time, but sometimes I want to do that with my iPad, and having that option I think would be great. And so that's why I'm so excited about this smart connector. I really want to see the types of accessories that come out, because you can imagine if I don't know what the restrictions are on it. We got to look through the developer documents and see what the licensing terms are and all that. But imagine you could connect anything magnetically to it, right? For instruments, for whatever. Any kind of dock that you could imagine that would connect to your iPad and potentially recharge it, or potentially be powered by the iPad. That opens up a huge range of potential and convenience there to have this be a next-generation computing device. So I'm thinking, when I'm excited about the iPad Pro, I'm thinking a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, where whether it's personal, business, whatever you're doing, all these cool opportunities that you could have just to slap your iPad on something and have it turn into the screen or something that powers something. I think that there could be a great amount of potential here to do some really, really cool stuff. So I'm excited. I think I'm going to get an iPad Pro. I don't know if I'm going to buy either of the accessories, though. I got to see what this Logitech keyboard looks like and how much it costs, and just kind of go from there. But we did... go ahead.
You don't want to buy the pencil? I mean, it's they made serious hardware improvements.
I can't even read my own handwriting, so...
You're going to be drawing birds, wild, exotic animals.
Let me send you a digital touch thing on my watch, and you can see how bad of a drawer I am.
It's going to be a smiley face.
Yeah. So anyhow, I wanted to... this seems like a good enough segue, because I put out a thing on our Twitter earlier, at AppleInsider, if you're not following, for all the latest Apple news. And I asked our many readers what they felt about yesterday's Apple event. And a lot of people wrote to us and said that they are upset that there's no third-generation iPad Air. At Frank Reinthaler said, my main question would be, why no iPad Air 3? And a bunch of other people agreed with him here. And another one, James Reb, at James REB, he said he needed a cigarette afterwards, minus the concert. It didn't need one more thing, but no update for the iPad Air 2. And another one, Chrissy FEN, said, agree with previous tweet, where is the iPad Air 3? You got to think that Apple didn't want to take away from the limelight of the iPad Pro, right? I mean, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, there would be... some of the people who are looking at iPad Air 3 would also be in the same market for a Pro. So releasing them both at the same time would be a mistake for another product that just debuted. It's basically an entirely... almost a new platform, considering its incredibly huge size and capabilities compared to current iPad lineup. But I mean, there wouldn't be any point in announcing an iPad 3, but they did make up for it, not updating the iPad Mini with the new iPad Mini 4.
The iPad Mini gained an A8 processor, not the A8X, and it's thinner, and it stays at $400. The iPad Mini 3 was an atrocity, let's be honest. That thing was the same processor as its predecessor, the same size, the same everything. All they did was add Touch ID and charged $100 more for it.
Wait, you got a new color.
Oh, jeez. That was a big mistake, so they fixed that this year. It probably should have put an A9 in it, but they needed to, again, allow the iPad Pro to stand out. I would say, tell me if you think I'm wrong here, Mikey, but I would say it is an inevitability that if not next year, in the next couple of years, what you see in the current iPad Pro, including the smart connector, support for the stylus, keyboard, smart keyboard, those are coming to the iPad Air. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, trickle down.
Yeah.
The law of trickle down Apple technology.
How long do you think they'll hold out on that and make it so you have to buy the Pro in order to get these Pro features?
I would say 2 years
2
would be
years.
sufficient. I mean, they just have to get a solid base of Pro users, right, before they start diluting that brand. But yeah, I mean, it'll obviously come down to the quote smaller version, which is, the 9.7-inch Air. But yeah, I mean, it might stop there. I don't know if I could see it coming out for the Mini. It's kind of a too small of a screen for something like the Pencil. But as far as the technology for the docking technology for the keyboard, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that coming down the entire range.
Do you think that cursor input on the iPad platform is an inevitability?
I don't know about that. I still think that Apple wants to differentiate between OS X and iOS. And that is one of the main, if not the main, feature that separates those two. So I'm not sure if we'll see that. I know they're kind of moving towards it with the two-finger cursor movements on the iOS 9, but I don't know if we'll see a full-blown mouse-type cursor
Trackpad
anytime soon. Yeah. I mean, they could do it on a per-app basis. I could see that happening, maybe. But definitely not across the entire operating system.
I think if they did it, they have to do it across the operating system, because then otherwise you're in this weird place where it's like, do I touch the screen? Do I touch the mouse? What works and what doesn't? I think if you're going to do it, you got to go whole hog.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
I would like it. I think it would be great for productivity. It would make it a much more capable working machine. I see why they don't do it. I would not be surprised if they never did it. But again, productivity would be a lot better if you had some sort of a precision input. And much like the Apple Pencil, this is not something that would be required for the device to be used. It exists on its own as a slate of glass to turn it into whatever you want it to be. You can dock it and connect a keyboard and a mouse, and it can be a traditional computer. You can just have it be a tablet. You can have it be a payment terminal. You can have it be a tour guide like they have at the World Trade Center. You can have it be anything. That's the future that I see coming for the iPad. It's just going to take us some time to get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hope all these devices will converge at one point,
yes.
right?
I mean, they have to.
What will that device look like?
Right. So we'll tear through a couple of reader comments here. Ken Arnsbarger said not 4K on the Apple TV, but it's touted as the future of TV. He's upset that the iPhones shoot 4K video, but the Apple TV can't display it. Good point. As I said earlier, there's only one Apple device currently that can display 4K content natively. So, although I guess can you fit 4K content on the iPad Pro? Will that work? They mention in the press materials editing 4K video, but I don't know if the resolution is high enough. I
think I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that. But I mean, again, that would be a huge file, and you'd have to stream that. So I don't know how great that would be as an experience.
Longtime reader Jim Neal at James W. Neal said that he was very happy with what he heard yesterday on all fronts. Jesse Morgan at XX Hexagon X said the Pencil sold the iPad Pro for him. First upgrade for him since the third generation iPad with Retina display. And he said Apple TV, he's looking forward to the Wii box. So I think Jesse's looking forward to playing some games. Nice. And then one more here. Alex Cormier at Stylin Stylite said, so many iPad models, though the Pro is very intriguing. Good move on the new watch finishes. So let's take that opportunity to just kind of go through the rest of the announcements here. We have rose gold and yellow gold Apple Watch Sport finishes that were announced. New partnership with Hermes. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not a watch guy.
Hermes.
Hermes, is that what it is?
Hermes.
So that shows how ignorant I am. So go ahead and laugh at me. You're a watch guy. What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's great, I suppose, for people who can afford it. The straps look pretty good. It's going to be outrageously expensive. I just know that right now. Right. I mean, I don't know. This is just another play at the high-end market. It really doesn't impact the average consumer in any way.
Do you feel like the yellow gold sport model kind of dilutes the appeal of the 18 karat gold?
No. It doesn't even look the same.
Right.
It's totally different. Right. People who are, in the market for a $10,000 Apple Watch probably don't care that there's a faux gold model in aluminum. It's just another option. It's interesting that they're expanding the sport line, which kind of suggests that is maybe the highest selling version, since they're concentrating on that the most.
And they're selling the space black Apple Watch stainless steel version with a black sport band now. Previously, you had to get it with a space black, whatever they call that, metal band. And it would cost like $1,100. So now you can get a space black Apple Watch stainless steel for $550. So they're definitely trying to bring the prices down. You can see that happening. So that kind of, as you alluded to, gives an idea of probably what kind of consumers are buying the Apple Watches right out of the gate.
That's unfortunate because I really wanted the space black version, but I didn't want to pay $1,000 for it.
So real quick, we'll also go over software updates announced. iOS 9 and watchOS 2 come out on September 16th. I installed the Golden Masters of these yesterday. Still having problems with iOS 9. I hope that they have another release candidate out this next week because the keyboard does not work well in the Messages app. So you may want to hold off on updating if nothing changes between now and then, but who am I kidding? You're listening to this. You're probably going to update as soon as you can if you're not already running the Golden Master. I've had some problems. Victor, who is normally our host here on the podcast, has had some problems, so downloader beware. OS 10 El Capitan is going to be on your Macs September 30th. That's a free download as well. And iOS 9.1 is already out. It's got some new emoji in there with tacos and burritos and unicorn and other ridiculous things. So if you're a 14-year-old who loves to do that kind of stuff, and I use emojis, so I say that in jest, you will have fun with that. Mikey, really quickly, I wanted you to go over this Steve Jobs movie you saw.
Oh, yeah. So, saw Steve Jobs, Man in the Machine, which everyone is calling a slam on Jobs, but I feel like it's a partial slam. I don't feel like he did it on purpose or purposely slamming him. The first half of the movie shows a bunch of archival footage. Well, actually, the whole film has a lot of things that I've rarely seen elsewhere. But suffice to say, the first half is fairly pro-Apple and pro-Jobs, and then it takes a turn for the worse and kind of goes into all of the dark secrets, as it were, Jobs, the backdating scandal, which two executives had to step down and had to settle out of court with the SEC over. Jobs was absolved of any wrongdoing. Of course, the film alludes to the fact that he was a mastermind of it all. Another thing was his relationship with Lisa, his first daughter, as well as her mother, Chrisanne Brennan. The fact that he deviated from his initial moral compass of creating creating a company that did only good to one that was, basically there for pure profit. Went into the Foxconn workers. The film had a lot of interviews from people in Jobs' early life who were either estranged or no longer had contact with him for some time. It lacked a perspective. There were no current workers from Apple interviewed, so a lot of jilted journalists were talked to about various indiscretions on Jobs' part. So it kind of painted a bad picture of him in the second half of the film. And adding to that was the fact that they didn't resolve any of these issues for the viewer. It kind of left it up to, the audience to make up their own mind, but it didn't provide enough facts or information to do so in a balanced manner. So in all, the movie, as a documentary, is a little biased, or more than a little biased, I'd say, but it does contain a lot of information in there that would be interesting to someone who is perhaps curious about how Jobs rose to power, what he did after gaining that power, and just a lot of behind-the-scenes looks at early Apple. It's an interesting film.
So the director of this, Alex Gibney, is a very famous documentarian who has a number of acclaimed films. He won an Academy Award for his film Taxi: The Dark Side in 2007. I've seen a lot of his work, and I'm a fan of his, so this is a film that I intend to see. You can see it right now. It's in select theaters if you're in a major market, and it's also available on iTunes and other places like that. You can rent it for a few bucks, right? Yeah. And he's probably best known for the Scientology documentary that aired on HBO last year, because that was actually based on a book of the same name, Going Clear.
Going Clear.
Fantastic documentary. For myself, someone who grew up in Florida, where their headquarters is in Clearwater, or their secondary headquarters, or whatever you want to call it. They own most of the town of Clearwater, Scientologists. So it was fascinating to me as somebody who's familiar with that. They also Gibney also did Enron, the smartest guys in the room. So he's a very highly acclaimed director, and this movie is controversial because a number of Apple employees and executives, including Eddie Q, has come out and slammed it and said it's mean-spirited and not a fair representation of who Steve Jobs was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He made a lot of claims in there, or a lot of allusions to Steve Jobs.
Right.
But on the other hand, he did, by asking those questions, give a deeper and more meaningful sense of who Jobs was, right? I mean, we all get to see the public persona of Jobs, his keynotes and public appearances, but rarely do we get to see the behind-the-scenes stuff. All that stuff is coming out now in books and movies, but to date, this is one of the films that contains some of the most incendiary footage, I guess you'd say.
So if I'm a hardcore Apple fan who thinks that Steve Jobs was the most important person of the 20th and 21st centuries, probably not a movie I want to watch.
Well, I mean, it is entertainment. You'll be extremely upset
right
at the end, or by the end. But I don't know. I mean, to me, this film is so open-ended and kind of rudderless that it brings out your own biases. So if you're going into it with that bias, it's only going to be solidified by the end of it. So if you worship Jobs as a tech deity, then you're not going to come out of it, convinced otherwise. So it's worth watching for the footage, especially the deposition stuff that he had in there. It's from the deposition. 2008 SEC investigation over the backdating. That has been aired elsewhere, but this kind of collects all that in one place. So for that reason, I would say, just rent it. It's worth seeing once.
Okay, great. Well, I would encourage everybody to check out the show notes and click the link to see Mikey's review. I thought he did a really bang-up job on the review. It was well written. So definitely check that out and see what he had to say about it. Finally, for our last story this week, I wanted to talk about something that I reviewed, a product called the Grip&Shoot, which is a iPhone camera accessory. It's a handle with a clamp on it that connects to your iPhone, and it has a trigger on the front, and it allows you to control the camera of a accompanying app. And why you would want it, some people in the comments were mistakenly calling this a selfie stick. It's not really what this is, considering it doesn't extend from you. It's just a comfortable way to hold your iPhone steady and get video or photo. And it has a couple extra buttons on the front, a plus and a minus, that are programmable. So you can make it digital zoom. You can have it switch between photo and video modes. You can change the exposure and things like that with physical buttons without having to touch the screen on the phone. I went into this product skeptical. I didn't think that I would like it as much as I did, but it brings a few unique things to the table that if you're looking for something like this, I would recommend it. One of the things that I thought was pretty cool is the top of it, which is the clamp, is removable. And then the bottom of it, the little butt at the bottom of it, can be removed as well, and that has a tripod mount in it. So what you can do is, in a pinch, you can connect these two pieces that are at separate ends of the device and put your iPhone on a mount, and then you still have the trigger separate from it, and so you could do a remote iPhone trigger for taking photos, like group photos, or maybe putting the camera somewhere that you can't physically get to and triggering photos that way. So that was an interesting element of it that just kind of adds to the versatility of it. And, you know, there's something to be said when you shoot with an iPhone, how thin it is. It's hard to hold it steady in your hand and get a good shot, especially if you have an iPhone 6 with those curved edges. Having something with a grip in your hand really does allow you to get steady and have that trigger there. So definitely, I can see this being very appealing for someone who shoots a lot of video and wants to get like a steady shot but not necessarily pay a bunch of money for one of those fancy gimbals or something like that. The main downside to this product is because it's a Bluetooth accessory that has to be programmed and all that, it does not work with Apple's camera app or likely any third-party camera app you're using. There are a handful of third-party apps. The developer has put out a API so you can use his tools to support the Grip&Shoot. The app that he has it's fine. It shoots photos. The one thing I didn't like about it was there's no burst mode like you have in the Apple's camera app. So you can hold down the trigger and it will repeatedly take photos, but it does not take them at nearly the speed that Apple's camera app does. So all in all, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I would recommend it to people that are in the market for something like this. I think that there is a market for it, and I think people, as long as they know the limitations going into it, if they don't mind the fact that you have to use a downloadable free third-party app to justify this, to actually use this device, then I think you'll be okay with it. Costs $100. It runs on a coin battery, which lasts for thousands of photos, thousands of button presses. You can unscrew it and pop out the coin battery, but there's no worry about recharging it or anything like that. So, all in all, I came away more impressed with this product than I expected to.
Interesting. Kind of expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it is Bluetooth, and it does have a good mount on it, and it does offer some versatility. So, you know, I think something like this would be better priced lower. You are right on that. But I like the customization that it offers, especially with this clamp on there. Secure. It can hold an iPhone 6s Plus. It held my iPhone in a Mophie battery case. So it has some versatility there that I think helped justify the price a little bit.
Cool. Check it out. All right, well, I guess that wraps it up for this edition of the Apple Insider Podcast. With us today was Neil Hughes. Neil, where can we find you on the web machine?
I am on Twitter at thisisneil, Neil.
Anywhere else? Perhaps a website?
Yes, you can read my writings at Apple Insider, considering I am on the Apple Insider Podcast.
Very interesting. Yes. And I, too, am at Apple Insider. I can be reached on the Twitters at Mikey Campbell 81. And if we think of any more sexual innuendos for the new iPhone 6s, we'll be sure to tell you next week. Today's episode was brought to you by Wix.com. Used by 60 million people throughout the world, Wix.com empowers business owners to create their own professional websites. With the drag-and-drop builder and hundreds of designer-made templates to choose from, you can get your website live today. It's easy and free. Go to Wix.com and create your stunning website today.